And thank you everyone for joining today. Um, Before I get started here, I always like to start off with the presentation we'll be covering today is going to be about 30 minutes, so we'll be giving you a little bit of time back in your day. And oftentimes when we do these presentations, it is catered around the initial, what is DocLink? So a lot of folks, when we're at trade shows or, we're doing any customer sites, things like that, they might not know initially what DocLink is. So then the first question is, what is DocLink and what can it do for us? So that's really what the goal of this presentation is, to address the initial question of what DocLink is, and then also show you where DocLink can fit into your organization, because there's a lot of things going on there that you might not realize that document management can help with. So that's really the goal of the presentation. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get started here, and we'll address questions as Ashley mentioned at the end of the presentation. So as you know, we all live in a world of instant access, right? I'm guilty of it. I travel quite a bit for my position here at Altec, and I am glued to my phone when I travel. I'm, calling Ubers if I need a ride from the airport. I'm checking my flight status. If I'm in a new city, I'll pull up Yelp, and I'll check out the nearest restaurants walking distance from my hotel. So we've all become used to this, right? Whether you're picking out movie times or whatever the case may be, right? You're used to being able to pull out your phone, punch a couple buttons, and getting that information immediately. So the question I really have for everyone is, why is it so hard for us to find documents when you enter your work office, your workplace? We've, as I mentioned, became used to having all this information at our fingertips, but as soon as we walk in the door of our place of work, we pretty much throw that notion out the window. And why is that, right? Why do we take a step backwards every time we go into the office when we should be making our lives easier and streamlining our business processes just like we do in our daily lives outside of the office? And it really does come down to one thing, right? It's how are you storing your documents today? So for the most part, the reason why you're here is because you're probably storing your documents in a filing cabinet, or you've taken that next step and you're using a network file share. Network file shares are great maybe for the first week or so, and then naming conventions come into play, misfiling, it just really becomes a mess, about a week's time. And then lastly, there's software. Maybe you're using something today that's not as robust as you need, it's not scaling. Maybe it's a homegrown solution. You need something that's integrated, such as DocLink. So that's really what we have to understand, is how you're storing your documents and where you need to get to with DocLink. So a lot of that does come into play with business challenges we face, and understanding where DocLink does fit in, where document management can help out. And we'll circle back to this slide here in a little bit, but really I want to get the ideas, kind of the questions flowing for you. So I want you to start thinking about problems that you face on a daily basis, right? Whether it's silos of business data to inefficient office inefficiencies, right? So these are things you got to kind of start thinking about. And again, we'll circle back to this in a minute. And here's a couple questions that I want you to ask yourself as well, right? As you're kind of preparing your list of questions or ideas of where document management can fit in your organization. Here are some low-hanging fruit type questions to ask yourself, right? Are you touching or moving a lot of paper, right? That's a big one. Are your processes manual and inefficient? And then, is someone spending a lot of time doing data entry, right? Or are they just coming in and plugging away at a keyboard all day? These are things and areas that DocLink can help out with. So really, now that you understand some pains that we'll be discussing, we need to know what DocLink is, right? So at its core, DocLink is essentially an electric filing cabinet, right? We capture documents as they come into the organization or as they are created. So say, for example, you are creating a purchase order out of GP. We can capture that purchase order and store it in the repository. It's going to be fully indexed by all the metadata on that invoice, which is going to next allow you to search and retrieve that invoice through the repository. We have various ways of accessing that document. From there, you're going to be able to apply some processes to that, right? So a business process, if you're doing any three-way matching, or maybe it's an approval of a document, you can use workflow to route that document to the person that needs to see the document and approve it, and then they can route it back to the next, to accounting to begin the process behind that. So workflows are a very powerful tool. We do have some, automated modules that we can help there as well. And then since we have all the documents captured in one place, the repository, right, we want to be able to send those out. So we do have the ability to send out automated documents on an automated delivery schedule, So if invoices go out every Friday at 3 p.m., we can set that up, right? If you need to send one-offs, we can do that. And we can also attach supplemental documents to those as well. So we're not just sending one at a time. We can attach documents and send them all out. So again, the idea is we capture documents as they come into the organization as they're created, which allows us to search and retrieve those documents from one point, which is the DocLink repository, and then you can start applying business rules, routing documents via workflow, sending those out to customers. And there's one other thing I do want to touch on when we discuss what DocLink is, because it is a configurable tool and it is a scalable tool, and that is we offer what we would call DocLink Smart Forms. DocLink Smart Forms really is what we would call simply a configurable window within the system. So any paper-based process you have today, for example, if you are using Excel for an expense report, we can actually recreate that expense report as a window within DocLink where the user would enter all that information, and then that information is already going to be captured. They can attach the receipts. It can be moved through workflow for approvals and then go to AP. Once it goes to AP, all the data entry has been done. They're going to review, make sure the approval's there, the receipts are there, and then they're simply going to import that into the ERP itself. So these are the things we're talking about. We can be completely configurable, scalable. These smart forms go anywhere from, HR onboarding and beyond, really. So one question we get, typically through the beginning of the sales cycle, and once you start going down the path of pricing, you usually get, this is a little more than we expected, right? But this is where we got to kind of start digging and thinking about some of the ROI. So along the way of this presentation, think about where DocLink can fit in terms of saving you money and creating that ROI for you. So in this case, this is a big one. We always like to show it because it's so powerful, right? This is $85,000 that we were able to save this manufacturer in storage and retrieval costs, right? So we essentially eliminated that. So essentially purchasing the software got rid of this annual payment of $85,000, right? So maybe it's not a large sum as $85,000 for you. Maybe it's $5,000 to $10,000. That's still a lot of money we can save on an annual basis, right? It's always going to go up in terms of your paper storage. It's never really going to go down unless you completely get rid of it with a system like DocLink. The next one, this is a big one too, especially if there's multiple offices spread throughout the state or in the city you reside in, is Postage, right? Or maybe you're mailing out all your AR invoices out to your customers, right? We can get rid of this as well. So this is another great savings here where we were able to eliminate some of this postage. And this one might be a little more hidden. I don't think people really think to do all the math to add up the postage they spend because it's such a small amount at every day that goes out, right? But over time it increases, and it ends up often being around $10,000 for most organizations when we do the math and up, right? So again, that is something we can easily get rid of and help out and streamline that process. And then you can increase efficiencies, and again, we'll talk on these a little bit more, but really you can expand without adding headcount. So I mentioned, doing that manual data entry or pushing paper in terms of filing. If you're considering adding a person to come in and do filing throughout the day, might not be the best use of that person's time or a good reason to hire that person. So instead, maybe you look in other areas of the organization where that person could actually benefit the organization as opposed to just pushing paper or doing manual data entry, right? So these are areas that we've helped out as well. So as I mentioned, we're going to circle back to these pain points because I want to dig a little deeper, right? I want to discuss what these really mean so you get a better understanding of where DocLink, again, fits in. So the first one is silos of business data, right? So we all have different solutions we're using, third-party solutions outside of the ERP itself. But the big part here with DocLink is we do have a nice integration with the Dynamics ERPs, right? You see here where we integrate across the platforms themselves. And the idea here is with that integration is we're breaking down the silos, so you're not having to go to two different areas. If you live in your Dynamics ERP system today, you can stay in there and access documents that reside in the DocLink repository. Maybe it's a manager and you don't go into Dynamics, your Dynamics system that often. Instead of having to use a user license, they can actually go to DocLink and access those documents. Same way, push and pull, that's where integration lies. Any information that's being entered into Dynamics today is going to be pulled and put into DocLink. So again, with the integration, we have a tight integration, push and pull information. And here you see just a quick example of that is here's an AP invoice entry screen, and you'll see where the circle is. There's a view documents button. So if you're actually in the screen and you want to recall documents associated to, this vendor number or this vendor name, you can push that, and it's going to bring up all the associated documents tied to that. So the nice thing again is no one really has to bounce between two systems. It's all going to be in one spot. And then accessing documents, right? So we know people are spread throughout, the state, or maybe they're the road warrior like I am. You're in a different city every other week. You have access points to access these documents outside of just the client that resides on your desktop. So we do offer a smart client. We do offer a mobile app, and this will give you that information at your fingertips that we experience when we're outside the organization, right? So if you need maybe to see a job order or a help desk ticket or something when you're on the road, you can access this from your mobile device, or you can log on to the web client, pull that up, see all the corresponding info that you need, approve documents. The list really does go on. So we are giving you tools to be powerful and streamline your process, right? And this goes with third-party applications, again, that I mentioned. If you're using any other third-party products, we can capture those documents, bring them into DocLink, and you'd be able to access them through these different platforms. And again, we do have integrations tied to some of those other third-party products as well. So again, giving you that single point of access and being robust, being able to tie into that integration is really a big thing, especially when it comes to breaking down those business silos, right, that we were talking about. So the next one is going to be inefficient workflow, right? So with the inefficient workflow, this is something that I think every organization experiences on a daily basis, and that is not knowing really where documents are, right? So we want to make sure that we're providing a tool that allows documents to be routed around, but not only that, we want to be able to see where those documents are. So if there's a manual process today you have in place where an AP invoice comes in, maybe it goes to the receptionist because it came through the mail, they open it up, they walk it over, they hand it to the AP clerk looks at it, they do some data entry, or they walk it over to the approving manager's desk, leave it there, and then they go back to their desk and begin their work, and then they have to follow up a day, 2 days, even a week later, trying to find out where that AP invoice is so they can finish processing it, right? There's no more of that. So as soon as that document comes in, if it's in the snail mail, that receptionist can scan it in, capture that metadata, goes to the AP clerk, they can push it onto the approving manager, they approve it, one click of a button, send it back, right? So these are the things we're talking about in terms of workflow and how it can help your organization. And here's a quick example of that, right? So you're able to approve documents from wherever you are, so there should be no delays anymore, right? So they'll get a notification via email, as you can see, it's kind of hidden behind that smartphone there, but really what the idea is the attached document that needs to be reviewed or approved will be there. There'll be some metadata regarding what that document is in the body of the email, and then you'll see it's kind of hard to see, but there's an approve and deny button there, right? So simply that approving manager can open that PDF, see what it is. Okay, it's the bill, it is approved. They can hit the approve button, and then it triggers the workflow. Nothing else needed to do by that approver, right? If it's denied, it triggers a workflow and it goes somewhere else. So again, nothing else needed. Very simple. There's no reason people should be sitting on documents to approve them. And the same goes for the smartphone, right? They can do it directly from their smartphone, approve, deny, view the attachment, add notes. It really makes it simple, right? And helps get the process of approving and entering those documents very fast, streamlining that process. The nice thing about the workflow as well, and as it being a robust tool, is the fact that you can actually delegate while you're out of the office. So this comes into play oftentimes when people obviously are going on vacation, maybe they're out sick, maternity leave, all the reasons why you're out of the office, right? So what happens is we don't want the business to get a backlog or get any bottlenecks while that individual is out of the office. So what they can do is they can set a delegate to access their workflow, right, to get their workflow while they're out of the organization to approve on their behalf. And then it's all going to be audited. It's going to see it's been approved by a certain person. But the idea here is when that person comes back in the organization, all those documents are going to be approved. They're not coming back to a stack of paperwork or, a million emails they got to get through for approvals and things like that. It's all going to be done so they can just jump back into their daily duties and not have to play catch up for a week, right? That is one of the nice things here. So really, workflow, powerful tool. It can be used many different ways. We can set up some really cool automation with it. And it really, again, just helps the business flow as it should. And then the next one is lack of visibility. And that kind of can go with workflow, right? And security and compliance. So oftentimes when I'm speaking with folks about DocLink, one of the first questions they ask, is this product secure, right? And it is. It is a roles-based solution. It is secure. It's Active Directory driven. So whatever your role is within the organization, you're only going to be able to see those documents. If you have multiple companies that are set up, you'll only be able to access those documents for the company that maybe you work for. Department, document type, property values. The idea here is if an AP clerk logs in DocLink, they're only going to be able to see the AP documents that pertain to their role. HR, they log in. Obviously, they're only going to see the HR documents. They're not going to see the AP documents, right? They're only going to see the documents that pertain to their role and get their daily duties done in a fast way. If you're the CEO, maybe the CFO, you're going to be able to see more. Really, it's all driven by the end user and setting up, who can see what, right? Audits. So this is a huge one when it comes to compliance, right? This auditor was fined. I believe actually it was more than 100,000 if I recall. But the idea is we can save you a lot of money with these auditors, right? So what happens is once you get hit with an audit and you pay a big sum of money, what happens? Those auditors come back and they want to try to get more out of you. So we're able to get this done. And really the idea here is we're going to be able to give you tools within DocLink to access those documents that you need for that audit. So when that auditor gives you a list of documents they want to see in the date range, right, you can actually just plug that into DocLink, download all that information, put it on a disk or a CD, CSV, however you want to, right? Hand it over to that auditor, email it over to them. They have access to all those documents. If they need more, they can ask. You can give those over. So really what happens here is you are essentially cutting the audit time by 3/4, if not more, right? Typically, people will be pulled off their daily duties to, prepare for an audit, to pull all the information for that auditor. That auditor comes into the organization, they review, they do their audit, and then what happens is that auditor leaves. You end up getting a bill sometimes, which is not nice. And then those people that had prepped for that audit now have to refile everything. And I think that, when speaking with folks is probably even more of the biggest pain, right? So a lot of time goes into audits. A lot of money gets spent in audits if you're not prepared and you don't know where documents are and you can't provide those documents. So DocLink is going to get rid of that. So as I showed you in that last screen, we were able to save that company over $100,000 is because we can produce documents within minutes, within seconds, really. And that's the nice thing. There's no more hunting down, no more time suck there. It's going to get done in a fast manner. You get those auditors in and out of the organization in a timely manner, and hopefully you avoid any penalties. Operational inefficiencies. So as I mentioned, there's probably a lot within the organization, and I was hoping you can start kind of thinking about those as I've been talking. And really, these are the ones we point out and we hear mostly on a daily basis, right? Is, you know, capturing information. How can you capture information, index that so you can search by it, right? So we have various tools of doing so. Not every company is the same, so we don't force you into one package. We are modular based, so we can, you know, we can adapt to your organization and help you where you need help. So when it comes to capture, we have, you know, about 10 different capture methods. If you have high volume, we can leverage tools such as OCR. Maybe you don't have high volume, get everything in email. We can monitor that email inbox using Import Manager and bring those documents in. So again, that really does help reduce data entry, and it does help with the next step below that, you know, where the automated capture. So now we're talking about reduce the manual processing, right? We're getting rid of that. When we're doing automated capture, automated indexing, we're able to reduce that information. When we're pushing and pulling information out of the ERP, we're reducing human error and saving time, right? So we're going to leverage information that resides in the ERP today. So vendors and all that, we're going to be able to pull those in when you're doing indexing, save keystrokes in terms of data input, and then obviously, as I touched on, we do have the ability to support that mobile workforce, right? And speaking of supporting the mobile workforce, and this is a huge one for a lot of organizations for many different reasons, but we're able to capture data from anywhere, really. The nice thing about this, and you know, again, I'll just speak from my experience because I'm on the road a lot, but this is great, right? You might be using some tools out there for expense reports, but yeah, I use this essentially to capture my receipts when I'm out on the road. I'll upload them to that smart form that I was talking about. When I'm there, I can fire that off to my manager for approval. He'll get an email. He approves it, goes to AP. I get my reimbursement check a lot faster. It is great. It's a great tool, but people are using this in different ways outside of just expense reports. We have trucking companies that have been using this, and they'll snap photos of damaged goods, or maybe if they've been in an accident, they'll snap a photo of, you know, the car and their truck, right? And they'll upload that to DocLink for, you know, for the insurance purposes. And then we have people that are working, you know, HVAC companies that are working on coolers and whatnot, and they'll take pictures of the damaged goods or the damaged equipment, and they'll upload it to DocLink for later view. So the idea here is we can capture information from anywhere. It's not just coming into the organization, you know, from a vendor. It's really a simple click from your mobile device, right? So very powerful tool. The next thing and the last part I'm going to touch on here is going to be the inability to maximize profits. And with this, I think, you know, there's some low-hanging fruit again for a lot of folks. You know, we did touch on a lot of customer evidence pieces along the way here, but really there's going to be some other things, right, that we need to start thinking about. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, oh man, if we did the math on all the paper supplies we do, if we ran those numbers, we're spending a lot of money, right? So we've helped organizations go entirely paperless. Some aren't as bold, right? Some still do a little bit, but the idea is that cost is slowly going down, right? With DocLink, we help get rid of that. It keeps your cost down in terms of no more paper. You know, you don't have to buy as much office supplies, staples, all that fun stuff, right? Again, I touched on this one, eliminating offsite storage and retrieval fees. Again, maybe you're not doing it today, but this also goes with kind of hand in hand with the strategic initiatives here is, are people spending all that time filing, right? A lot of people do that, and there's really no need, right? We do have software such as DocLink that can help eliminate, you know, the offsite storage and doing the manual stuff, which reallocates time for strategic initiatives to help your business grow in other ways, as opposed to just pushing paper or doing, again, those manual keystrokes to get that document into a system, right? And then having to duplicate that information down the road. And then again, as I mentioned, you can grow without adding headcount. It is a big thing, right? So these are just some, again, low-hanging fruit that I think a lot of people can relate with, and they can see the value and where DocLink can come in and help alleviate this. And so this is where, we're really coming full circle, and we've discussed these business problems, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the folks on the phone today experience some of these, and maybe there's going to be a lot more that we didn't discuss that you've jotted down and said, hey, look, this is where DocLink can help us, because we can, right? We're scalable. We know what we can handle, and we know what we can provide to organizations. We have customers, throughout the world, really. We have customers in Europe, Asia Pacific, Australia. And so our support is 365, 24/7. We're available. We are actually located, our support staff is located in Tacoma, Washington. Our corporate office is based in Laguna Hills, California, but we're on the road quite a bit. So if you do want to see a demo or anything, and I'm in the area, I will be in Minnesota next month. We can set up time where I can come and actually show you the product, give you a better idea of how it's going to work within your organization. Now that we've discussed what kind of problems we can address, now we're going to show you what the software can do to address those problems. So that's really the next step. So, if you are interested in the next step, let's set up a quick call, understand your problems, because again, not every organization is the same. And then we'll set up a demo and we'll show you how we'll get rid of those problems for you in terms of, pushing paper and your bottleneck processes there. So with that, I know I've been talking rather fast here, but I want to open it up to questions and ask Ashley if anything has came through that we can address. So Ashley, did we have any questions that popped through?
Hi, Kurt. Yeah, we actually did have a couple come through. The first one is, how could this work with matching purchasing documents to invoices, parentheses, purchase orders, packing slips, etc.?
Right. Yeah. So this is something we do day in and day out. The three-way, two-way match. There's a couple different ways we can address it. All those documents are going to reside in DocLink. So, as that purchase order is created, no matter if you're using Dynamics or maybe you're using another third-party product, or maybe it's a Word or an Excel, we capture that. We have that in the repository. As that packing slip comes in, as that invoice comes in, it's going to all be tied together to where you're going to have those documents in DocLink. You can pull up side-by-side fashion, do a visual match, or we do have more robust tools such as OCR, where we can actually do an automated three-way match to alleviate all that altogether. So various ways of doing that.
Great, thank you. And the next question is, what does the integration with GP actually look like? Is there a smart scan feature that can actually read an invoice and enter the vendor and invoice detail into GP automatically?
Yes. So again, as I mentioned, we do have several different ways of capturing that information. And yeah, we do have what I believe that individual might be referring to is optical character recognition, or an OCR module, where as an invoice comes in, we'll say in the email format, we'll open that attachment in that email, we'll read all that metadata off the invoice. It's in there, and then in terms of our integration, we simply hit an import button. We can import all that information into GP, or vice versa. If that information resides in GP, that vendor's already set up, we can pull it and attach it to that invoice to reduce that manual data entry.
Thank you. And the next one is a two-part question. Does the approval process include GL coding by approver? If this can be done, will it handle intercompany processing?
Absolutely. So we give you the power, or the tool rather. We have what we call a GL distribution stamp, which allows you to route that document around, and when it is routed, that individual, so if a manager does need to do coding, they can code it and push it back through workflow. Very easy, very simple to use. And then yes, we do offer intercompany, and we are actually, compared to some of our competitors, we handle intercompany and others do not. So yes.
Okay, and the next question. We use the expense side of Concur. Does DocLink work with Concur to move the expense reports and back up into GP?
So we do have some customers that are using Concur, And what we do is we leverage just our import manager where we'll capture those expense reports and we'll bring those into DocLink. And then from there, we can import those into GP if you'd like. It gets there's a little more to it, but keep it simple, yes.
Great. Is DocLink installed on its own server, or can it be installed on a server that is running other applications as well?
Yes, it can be stored on either. Typically, we do like to reside where the ERP is just because of that integration, and we don't want to cause any latency. But yes, it can be stored, on either, and we can always provide that information, our requirements in terms of server size and what is needed to actually get the DocLink on there.
Perfect. And it looks like the last question that came through. I noticed in your demo that you were processing an invoice that wasn't originated by a purchase order. We occasionally use purchase orders. Does your workflow support other documents besides invoices?
Yeah, absolutely. So any type of document in any process we can handle. So it doesn't matter. Say it's an HR onboarding document or an application you're routing, or a resume you're routing to department heads for their review. It can be anything. So yeah, anything outside of, as long as it's a document with some metadata, we can route it around.
Great, thank you. And that looks like that's the last of the questions. If you guys do have any other questions, I will be sending the recording of this out this afternoon. So you can always email me from that email, or you can directly reach out to Kurt with any follow-up questions that you may have today.
Yep. Thank you, Ashley. And yeah, and here is some contact information. You can just reach out via phone, email, and then obviously if you want to follow us on Twitter, we have a lot of good information that gets passed around there, blogs and whatnot regarding document management. And again, if you are interested in setting up a demonstration, and if you are in the Minneapolis area, I will be out there next month. So please don't hesitate to reach out to your Interdyne account manager, or you can reach out to me directly at this contact information here, and we can get something scheduled. So, and if you're not in the area, we can always just set up a call and walk through some stuff and show you a nice demo. So again, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I hope we give you a little bit of time back in your day. It looks like we did. So again, for now, we're signing off, and thanks again.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.